Get Rich Slow with John Wolf. Well, here we have Grant again, and I really wanted to, just as an example of a business or profession and what their value proposition is to a customer, can you explain for us what a physical therapist specialty is and how that would save me money?
Yeah. Well, I think, we first start with the question of, how do you value your health, number one? And the way I think about that after, anytime that I, have an injury that impacts my ability to work, I feel that acutely because, that makes me afraid of lost income, of lost connections with, my clients or, my work situation. And really, I guess, what that makes me, as a physical therapist helping people, it's very closely tied to overcoming, let's say, an acute injury quickly. And if it's let's say a chronic pain, understanding how to get the body's own mechanisms of strengthening and healing kicked off so that your body can get on the path to healing itself. And that can take, a number of forms in terms of how much of it is at the tissue level, how much of the pain syndrome is in how you are using your body, how much of it is actually a cognitive and let's say a psychological piece as well, which can't be discounted. And then what are those factors in the environment that need to be changed as well? And so I think for what the audience is coming here to get is information on how to be financially well. And I think it's not far of a stretch at all, if not self-evident, to say that your health and your physical wellness is the cornerstone of being able to push hard to make transitions that will exponentially grow your income.
Yeah, and I don't think it would be a leap for anybody to kind of realize how, a nagging pain in my knee or lower back or something. Some of these very common things, and sometimes they're not that common, or wrist pain or whatever. When I'm in a decent amount of pain, I'm not the best possible father. Definitely not the best possible salesperson or producer as a business owner or worker, for sure.
Okay.
And one of the things that I would like you to speak to a little bit, that I was convinced pretty quickly by you working with you as my physical therapist, was that these nagging pain things are building injury. So I don't know if we have direct proof or evidence, but I don't think it would be a leap that really nagging knee pain ignored in 20 years would be some permanent serious arthritis or knee replacement.
I think if we imagine the body is, if we imagine the body as intelligent, and if we stop trying to fight the body and pay attention to its signals, its physical signals, and we can be as woo about this or as directly cold and rational about this as much as you have the understanding or where you are. If you believe that your knee pain is because you're in a stressful work environment and this work environment is oppressing you and you need to get out, and maybe if that is or is not the case, your belief system about your body is interacting with your external environment, and that directly feeds back on your injury. And if that were to continue for a period of time, let's say if there is a a meme that the body turns over cells every 18 months, and you're a different being every 18 months or so. There could be something that becomes who you are if you do not pay attention to the signal, and it lingers. This becomes who you are as a belief.
I mean, there's the really real idea, and I'm not a psychologist, so I'm going to step all over you psychologist people, but like what you do becomes who you are.
Yeah. I mean, and we can bring that right back to the tangible physical level.
Mm-hmm.
And so we look at this narrow view of, let's say, one joint or one area of your body. The signal will continue ramping up until you do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a point where that signal becomes decoupled from the amount of tissue damage you have. Either your body habituates around it and basically, you stop doing that thing that is causing pain. Maybe you avoid going downstairs, and so you're trying to avoid the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Or let's say you start because of the pain in one area of your body, that you start walking in a way that is trying to accommodate for that. That starts to put stress and pressure on other parts of the body.
Mm-hmm.
Neither of which are good. You're basically your body is just finding a way, because cognitively you're not changing the circumstances to attenuate and get out of that bad situation.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say months, years down the road, that soft tissue injury that started as an acute strain or sprain or slight contusion maybe, it was at the point where it could have been remedied by focusing on let's say the way you're using your body above and below that point, or the health of the tissue directly at that point. And then that tissue has the opportunity to either become stronger and more supple and more in line with the rest of your body, or it can scar down, become harder, become less pliable, less healthy, less vascularized.
Yeah.
And that's where let's say that long-term calcification, that's where the part of your body becomes older. It becomes it ages prematurely.
Yeah.
It becomes sclerotic.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes more dead than living.
Yeah,
and less able to repair itself.
Yeah, and like my best example that I've seen myself, and you could go replicate if you wanted, but the chickens people normally eat in the store are like 4 or 6 months old, I think. And you can, if you want to, go find an old hen, like the egg laying type, and at like 2 or 3 years old. But anyways, on the drumstick, the leg, there are these like kind of tendons on the young chicken, and on the old chicken, those are bones.
Wow.
Like they feel and look like bones.
Yeah.
You can't eat through them.
Yeah.
And I think that something similar probably happens to us. I'm just gonna guess.
Well, working on a young person's body versus an old person's body, I think even almost without fail, there is a just in my experience, I guess, but it seems to hold water, that there's a potential for how much of the range of motion can we recover, how much of the strength can we recover. And I have seen some pretty remarkable things in people over 70, some 80-year-olds gaining strength and gaining range of motion beyond the point where they started their injury.
Yeah.
But it just goes to the point that the early warning signs, the points in your day where you're starting to feel like, I'm slumping in my chair, or you're trying to make things easier, trying to accommodate. Those are the early warning signs that if you were to reverse that process and challenge yourself, challenge these, let's say either the direct injury or challenge the patterns that you're using, that's going to start to bring your body back into an adaptation state, making it stronger, more resilient, and healthier.
Yeah.
So you can look at it from the individual joint or area into the whole. And if you have any limitation in one part of your body, that's limiting your overall daily workload or function, we want to drive your function upwards over time, up to a certain extent, where you do reach your aerobic capacity. And then, we just basically want to get you through life without any single point of your body being the limiting factor.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I wanted to just say from like my own personal experience, I'm so unique. I've had knee pain. You never hear that. You never get patients with knee pain. It's like super rare, right?
Everyone's new to me. Yeah.
But I had tried to treat myself in a bunch of different ways.
What did you try?
It's been a long time, but I did serious ice packing.
Yeah.
I did try to do some exercise and stretches on my own.
Good.
And you literally told me, I can't remember what it was, but there was a specific stretch I was trying to do to alleviate the pain, and you specifically told me to stop doing that whatsoever.
It was the quadricep stretch.
I don't even remember what that is.
Right. So, if you have pain, let's say on the front of your knee, and you're trying to get it to go away by stretching that joint, or stretching the components around that joint, you are, let's say, looking at it from a material perspective, you're asking that joint that's trying to scar down and heal and become more, have more integrity, basically asking those fibers to now stretch,
to pull apart. Yeah, you're pushing against.
You're pushing against it.
What you want to happen in the wrong way. If you do it wrong, so to me, because I was like, I just asked Grant hey Grant, explain quickly how physical therapism is is great, and it really is I go in there and he makes me do a bunch of very ridiculous seeming exercises, but that very obviously strengthen around the problem.
Yeah.
And do it over time. And then, we were talking about growing your business or whatever. So his speciality, which it's super awkward. It's not
not to me.
It's not awkward to him anymore, but his specialty is men's health.
Yeah.
Because there is unique pelvic floor issues that men sometimes have that are almost completely untreated or mistreated. Largely.
Unfortunately so, yeah.
That, I think people are even doing surgeries, taking major pain medicines, and certainly not every time, I'm sure, but a decent chunk of the time doing really weird exercises, which we're probably not going to exactly explain on a YouTube channel, can make it go away. I had a carpal tunnel surgery, and the most frustrating thing having to do with health and medicine, single thing in my life, was I had the carpal tunnel release surgery. After the surgery, I met a physical therapist because it was still hurting, and the physical therapist was like, you can kind of go like this, and do this one other thing, and it stopped hurting for a week.
Yeah.
For 2 minutes of effort, and I got a surgery that cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars and didn't fix the problem.
And
I'm not, physical therapy won't be an instant. It won't be that easy on a lot of things.
Well, basically, it's, I really view myself as helping people take care of the low-hanging fruit and treating their body like a intelligent self-healing system first. Let's do everything in the category of let's say, daily maintenance before we bring in the high value surgeons that are going to change the structure immediately. And what can we do to get the body, moving perhaps slowly towards the right direction? But, I will speak to my experience. Generally, if we're on the right track in physical therapy, someone's going to feel some measure of relief in the first visit or two. Because when you start moving in a certain way, your body's trying to heal, and the way you move is going to affect how that injury feels. So I guess and I really view the let's say the male function of having an erection, being able to have full sexual function, being able to ejaculate properly, and having healthy pelvic tissues. It's no different than working on another musculoskeletal system of the body. It's just the fact that we sit on it all day at the office.
Probably doesn't help a lot.
Doesn't help a lot, and the fact we might not think about the health of the system until it's going catastrophically wrong. At which point, it's a major problem. And so, I experienced these issues myself when I was, let's say, amateur bike racer, and was also trying to balance my school as a physical therapist. And yes, I was a high performing athlete, but I was not doing a good job of taking care of my health. And having the experience of the frustration of going through, seeing urologists, seeing medical specialists, and when there was no direct medical cause to my dysfunction, I was lucky enough that my doctors did not prescribe any unnecessary medication, such as antibiotics or surgeries, to intervene on a problem that did not have
or narcotics.
Or narcotics. And
like,
this is...
I know people whose lives have been ruined for taking narcotics that they probably, maybe they should have been given 1 or 2 pill of, but not a bottle.
Right. And the medical system is amazing because we've got these these powerful tools to interact globally with the body in the form of medications, and then a surgery is going to directly intervene on a tissue right away in the intent to put it back together when it's torn, or something needs to be removed, such as cancer. But the medical system does not have good tools for dealing with dysfunction that build over years. And so this is what physical therapy is good for, because it's low, generally what I consider low tech, low complexity at the human level of how do you feel your body when we move this way? Does it feel better or worse? If it feels better, let's do more things that challenge the body in that way. And if it feels worse, let's see if we can understand why it's feeling worse, in terms of if your body's having a malalignment issue, or a muscle firing issue, let's say. And then we'll do less of that and more of this, and your body tends to heal.
Yeah, so 2 things that I want him to not be able to get away with understating so much. So even several years later, when I met him, he talked about being good physical. He looks like the statue of David. I've seen it. But and he was doing like sub Tour de France type activities on a bike at the same time. And then we were talking about your business and stuff as well, and he's really pushing forward and becoming a thought and a practice leader, I think, both in this male pelvic floor health field, and also you were telling me about this tool that you bought and used, and I've even used, and it sounded super woo. What was it called?
Yeah, so
you can name the tool.
This treatment is called focused Shockwave Therapy. This special device is he's laughing. He's laughing, and he's still laughing even though he's received pretty significant benefits from it. And the manufacturer is called Richard Wolf from Germany, and the machine that they are marketing for musculoskeletal issues is called the Peso Wave. And it's a similar ultrasound technology to how a urologist might break up a kidney stone.
Well, this is actually funny because the first time I talked to him, he didn't say that last sentence.
Yeah.
I think that I pushed that into his...
What did you say?
Well, you called it like the Pivo... You called it the Peso...
Peso Wave.
The Peso Wave, Shockwave or Shockwave
I told
Therapy
you this is
or whatever.
So
and
look
I was
it up
like,
in the research.
I was like that. I was like, that doesn't. I was like that. Like
focus shockwave.
Focus shockwave. I was like
Yeah.
that sort of doesn't like. I was like that sounds dumb. Like that sounds dumb. You're talking about ultrasound, right? And people think of the imaging. You can actually inject sort of heat into someone's body with an ultrasound. That's like a different thing because it's sound. Anyways.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean it's not a frequency you probably can hear, but it is sound, and you can pump out.
PTs have been providing
some type of
ultrasound for decades.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately, for the people still providing that, there's very low.
It seems like a heat pack.
Well, yeah. I mean,
to me,
it doesn't cure the injury.
Well, it definitely doesn't do that, but it seems to do a faster job at the same thing that putting a heat and or ice pack on your muscle does.
Old style ultrasound.
Yeah, old style ultrasound.
Different than focus shockwave.
And I was like, this is woo. This sounds really dumb.
Yeah. And what was your experience with it?
And so I have carpal tunnel, but I had carpal tunnel. I had the surgery, whatever, and I still get that thing. And it's the weirdest thing. So
what does it feel like when you have the injury? What can't you do?
Oh, my flexibility on my wrist goes down when it flares up, and it hurts to lift things.
Like what? Like simple things, right?
Yeah, like the other day I was like, I think I'm picking up plates wrong because I pick up like a single small plate that doesn't have a ton of food on it, and it's like, damn, my wrist immediately hurts. And we talked about how I could grip the plate differently, and that's good. So I think that what you told me, and maybe I've forgotten everything, is like when I grab the plate, I should actually pressure on the thumb and kind of like make the grip stronger. Because what I tend to do, and it's this kind of physical therapy, I tend to like just barely, like as if I was trying to not break the plate by just squeezing. I like barely and then lift it up. And like actually now that I do the difference, squeezing gives that joint the strength to not get messed up in others. But anyways, the therapy like you're talking about, he presses it onto you and it makes a snapping sound. And with the snap, when it's on, I guess, healthy tissue, even when it's over bone, which kind of blew my mind because I thought that's where it would hurt, all you really feel, it's as if somebody was snapping a rubber band, but on a plastic cup that was full of water, and you were just feeling...
That's what it sounds like to you? Yeah.
Well, that's what it feels like to me. And like you're just feeling like a tiny thump while you're hearing. There is a snapping band sound, too, for sure. But it's so it feels like. It feels like something's flicking you through... a liquid that doesn't hurt at all. But then when he goes over, and I don't think he'll particularly like my description, or maybe he does, when he goes over where I think my ligaments are maybe calcified, but it's the same places I'm trying to massage, and it's through the joint. Only the joints that have pain through them, it honestly it's intense pain. Yeah. And it's direct. Yeah. And it's really weird. It almost feels like a deep tissue Swedish massage where somehow they didn't touch the surface at all. They didn't even touch the healthy muscle. They like got right onto the piece of the muscle that hurts or the tendon or whatever. And the level of pain I got from, this area when he was right on it and he can like control the power. So I had to make him stop or lower it. So like, my fingers are getting slammed in a car door level of pain. And then as soon as he stops, the pain instantly ends. Yeah. And the crazy thing is I like immediately had more flexibility.
I'll say even
to the point like I'm pretty even right now.
Even more flexibility on the left side.
My left side, which is always the bad side, had more flexibility than my right side, which wasn't treated, even though the right side was better before we did it. Yeah. And that just like blows my mind, especially for like luckily, I can very easily do some massage type stuff to me to almost immediately resolve this usually. But deep tissue massage into the pelvic floor wouldn't even be an easy thing to physically do.
Well, I've been doing that.
Like I know you do it, but
I've been doing that for years with I guess part of it is again what's going on at the tissue level. A tissue that's not getting moved through its full range of motion, or is being held in one position,
like shortens, contracts, calcifies, does something bad.
It does something that is, it's reducing its range and it's reducing its function. And so, doing manual therapy on an area, you're able to interact with, let's say, the pelvic floor, to what you can touch, and then indirectly what you are stretching, and the pelvic muscles that you're able to interact with. You're stretching around maybe what might be a deeper tightness to a muscle that you can't directly reach. And then we use a lot of exercise modalities that look like yoga with proper form to stretch the hip joint, to move the lumbar spine, to move the pelvis on the hips, in order to indirectly affect as much of the pelvic floor as we can, then using direct pelvic floor exercises to strengthen it. And then the Peso Wave comes in to reach the areas that I can't directly interact with, either with manual therapy or exercise or mindful techniques on how to use your pelvic floor.
Well, yeah, my experience of your physical therapy practice on me, the yoga-ish aspect, because I'm super not woo, so I almost get irritated when people talk about mindfulness or whatever in the yoga. But I'll just say, I do not think that there is any way possible that a physical practice of your body gets you towards anything approaching heaven. I do think it can be good for you, but but and I think that there is some yoga that kind of that present that way.
I would say, potential on earth, let's say, is what I use yoga for.
But your physical potential.
Your physical potential, which helps you...
Which might help you achieve...
Unlock your cognitive and
it might help you achieve a better life, might help you get closer to Jesus or following Muhammad's teachings or whatever you have to do.
But hey...
If you're not in pain, it'll probably
help. I would just
help.
say anyone can bring their belief system to it.
Yeah.
But I would just challenge whatever your belief system is, have a physical practice that helps you, I would say, focus on what your body's feeling, focus on...
feeling your body, understanding yourself, but like any even push in the direction of that, like stretching a muscle is going to have spiritual practice to me. I hate the woo, but anyways, one thing that's really great is the routine. One thing that is great about yoga is the routine and setting up a stage and the practice of repeating something where you are focusing on your body and your inner actual real physical self. And one of the greatest things that kept me coming back to Grant as a physiotherapist is like, he was able to make me a yoga routine out of those awful physical therapy type notes that I've been handed before, where it's like, do this really weird exercise, repeat whatever. I won't keep doing that for months.
That's right.
And there's 2 or 3 yoga routines that he's done set up for me, which I have done hundreds of times. I don't do it all the time, and I fall off the wagon or whatever, but I get back on myself
because it works. And it feels good.
Works and it feels good.
And it uses your whole body, I would say, instead of just let's say we want to go directly at a person's injury. I wouldn't want to do something that was not addressing the main reason that you wanted to come in.
You're not wasting time, but you have to warm up other things.
You have to warm up other things
to affect what you want to, and you can just strengthen. It's like, without going to dumb extremes, there's no world where having better even arm pectoral strength makes you walk worse.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well,
even if it's not directly connected.
I would just make a tangible example.
Yeah, maybe a not stupid example.
It's like if we're working on your wrist. Okay, we want to work on the strength of your entire upper extremity. If we could do that all at once, each joint, the wrist, the elbow, the shoulder, all the soft tissues in between, and we're asking your hand muscles to be as active as possible. Oh, and then why not connect that to your torso and connect your torso to a challenge for your legs, and then there's a balance aspect. Oh, now we're doing a side plank.
And there do seem to be really large things in overall health, which I'm not getting woo. I'm just being non-specific because A, I'm not that kind of doctor at all, and B, some of this stuff isn't super well understood, but it's pretty generally clear that just for example, high body fat content messes up actually some of your other hormones, which causes other problems, even completely unrelated to the physical mass or even your body's need to just supply oxygen to tissue.
I think that's where I think, for people that, might be, approach something that is of low risk and low, how can I say, like low complexity, such as, bodyweight exercise routine or yoga, if you want to call it that. Approach that, with a healthy degree of skepticism and a careful mind, but also just know that, building up your own system of self-care, it's really at your level of feeling challenged and what feels like it's taking you in a direction of improved function and away from, I would say a realm of low function or low resonance with your body. The difference between he
says resonance.
Sitting on the couch all day versus doing 10-20 minutes of basic yoga poses.
So when I'm frustrated with how my day is going and I'm not making forward progress, a much healthier thing to do than watch YouTube videos or TV or whatever would be honestly like sometimes I do this 2 o'clock I'll do this, and that might stop working to take a break at 2 o'clock might sound lazy, but I usually start my workday at 4:30, so get off me. But the other day because I was a little sick too, I took a bath. Because baths feel nice. And
you're right. You wanted to heat up the body.
I wanted to heat up the body, or doing the yoga if I was feeling better. With or without a warm up. Sometimes it's clearly not as good without a warm up.
But it's what's the evidence for that in terms of? But it's in terms of what? It's
there's all kinds of evidence for positive or negative health effects for heating and cooling the body.
Right. But I think that
having your own, there's not.
I think that's true.
Which is just ludicrous. So when if you just want to do some interesting reading or whatever, there was a terrible flu pandemic in, I think it was the late 60s. And that was the last terrible flu pandemic before there was really such a thing as doctors as we think of it today. And then there was the flu of 1911, and that for both of those periods of time they didn't have a lot of tools we have now, so they did things that were called hydrotherapy, which in large part consisted of, for the right times and reasons and interval, pouring cold water or hot water over the person's body, and that absolutely affected how likely someone was to get pneumonia. And back then, if you got pneumonia, 50% of the time you died, roughly. And the weird thing is they're not what naturopathic doctors are today by any means, definitions and truths of drink, but many more people died in the 1917 flu pandemic because of things like overdose of aspirin.
Oh, that's so messed up.
And apparently, if you went to the naturopathic doctors who weren't allowed to use aspirin, your chances of survival were way higher statistically.
That's amazing.
And
there we go.
And nothing. Everybody's getting better at everything, all the time. Thankfully, at least in my experience of life, things have been getting better all the time. For the part of this universe that I exist in, anyways. But it's really funny because people pretend, I hate the woo, but people pretend that things that you can do don't have an effect, where there is, on the male health and longevity thing, there is a ton of evidence that vigorous muscular exercise increases human growth hormone, almost immediately for that person, kind of locally, and that has a bunch of positive health effects that could actually make you live longer. And, there's people sell testosterone boosting supplements, or actually take testosterone, which has huge effects on the body. But it's really well known that if you're a 30-year-old guy and you leave your household and hang out with a bunch of just guys on a hunting trip or something, and especially guns are involved or any real weapon, your testosterone levels will actually go up considerably.
See? Yeah, I would just say, what you're kind of reminding me of is like, if you have a problem, there's usually going to be a product that is a direct solution that is purporting to solve your problem. But maybe to our, like, the point of this, what the audience maybe is coming here for is like, how can we, what can we do that helps people's, their long-term health, their long-term financial well-being. When you slow down at a certain point and you're you want to solve a problem directly, but before you click the buy now button on a pill bottle that is supposed to, let's say, solve your erectile function, why don't you start with clearing out the low-hanging fruit of what might be some very glaring lifestyle problems that will help other aspects of your life. They will be, let's say, less cheaper in aggregate, or I'm sorry, they'll be less expensive in aggregate, and they really solve the broader problem of ill health instead of just trying to pick away at one individual problem at a time with a lot of money.
Yeah, and you're talking about things like adjusting your life so you don't sit so much, getting different kind of seats, paying more attention to the effect and the effect that alcohol has on you, the amount, the timing, and the kind, because those things all seem to matter. At least they matter in my life.
That's right.
How it affects you the next day or whatever, and these things aren't just dose dependent. They're time, what time of day.
And I would say everyone is on the continuum somewhere, and so there are some ground rules and there are some probably general guidelines you want to follow when it comes to like understanding your health, but it is a bespoke practice. You need to understand how your body ticks now and in the future, depending on kind of what your performance goals are. And I just think it comes down to having a system of checking in with yourself as often as you can in a way that truly evaluates if you're moving the way you need to, and if your body's feeling like you need it to, and if it's not, use that as a, I think, positive experience to try to figure out what those negative sensations are instead of trying to cover them up with analgesics or things that deaden your sensations.
Yeah, and this isn't like a right or wrong thing, but it seems like for whether you're trying to attach a motor mount or whatever, it seems like there's a lot of opportunities in our life where we're like, we can push really hard on one thing, or we can push a lot softer on 5 things.
It's force, it's just distribution of force. That's how we take care of certain pain syndromes, like with your wrist. Like, I'm not going to do surgery on your wrist just because you have a little pain. Let's first start by distributing the force of your task away from this one area, distributing it to as many tissues as we can. That allows the body to do its thing and heal. And
and part of that is like my continued education on how my habits for doing things are helpful or destructive. I mean, we don't talk about my health a lot. Destructive for what I'm having trouble with, and also, like you said, like pushing on a bunch of things. We do different exercises and massage and all these supportive therapies, and it works. It's sustainable. It's not expensive. And one of the things that frustrates me a lot about like health practice in general, or whatever, it's really easy to get the approval for a $12,000 surgery that has all sorts of very real risks attached to it. Forcibly making someone unconscious as part of most surgeries is not like the first move you want to make. Risk wise, to me anyways, while the physical therapy is often, I think the 2 most common things that people see about physical therapy or my perceptions were anyways, that like either it's this like super boring, non-personal, and it's really the physical therapist who creates this in how they work, not super effective or direct, or it's considered like a luxury. And the interesting thing about what you want to do building your business is you want to be paid dollars and cents that a lot of people feel reserved for like luxury items, and by the kind of people who can afford luxury items. And I think the most direct comparison is like really good massages from people who are very highly skilled. I mean, it's not crazy for a 90-minute massage to be like $200. And I think what was the kind of pay range you wanted to actually get to?
Well, like I think. Well, you mean in terms of what I'm trying to capture?
like me visiting you for how many minutes is...
Well, I mean, what a physical therapist bills insurance for like, say around 60 minutes, the business is charging, a person's insurance company like $300.
$300? Okay.
And so, and that's what, but that rate gets negotiated
I think
down.
You're worth that, but then what happens?
Yeah, but then what happens is everyone before me takes their cut, and the insurance company also, let's say, processes that in a downgraded fashion. Let's say just because that is some negotiated contract rate. Which is opaque to me, but so I feel like investing in your health is important, and so you're gonna get what you pay for, and you're extremely lucky if you find healthcare practitioners that.
As someone who works as a salesperson, I want you to reframe that. Okay. You get a lot more than you pay for, because that's your actual goal. Is to give people a lot more than they're paying for.
Well, I think so. And I would say,
I was trying to help.
Well, I think you're getting somebody that's paying attention to your health and using all their education, experience, and just like their whole, I think, personhood to like listen to the problem that you're having, and then find a solution that's actually workable for you.
Yeah. And there is like no world where a physical therapist who's like checked out and uninterested in your problem is going to be super helpful.
I guess not. I mean, no.
I've literally experienced that, which is why I just like bring it up.
Right. I mean, my way of doing things is really like I'm struggling along with everyone else trying to figure out how to be healthy in our modern world with all the demands that we have. And so everything I have learned and am learning is continuing to make me, I think, more effective as a physical therapist as I, am now a young father and having to become more efficient with my time and resources to be healthy. Yeah. And I feel like the stakes of not are just not, it's just not an option. Like it's not an option to be less functional, to spend more than necessary on your health. However, like relying on what your insurance company is going to cover, that unfortunately is oftentimes obstructing what you might need, in terms of the type of help you might need or how much of that help you might be able to get. And it seems to me like when you invest in something for your health and you really treat it like an investment and not something that you're going to consume because it's part of your health insurance program, you're motivated to figure that out quickly, directly. And this is how I operate. I personally find a doctor that helps me directly without insurance in the way. I pay him cash, or I pay my my massage therapist in cash. I pay my personal trainer in cash, because I want to find a working relationship that works and the things that I personally need, and I seek out those people that are going to shore up my weak points in health.
Yeah. Well, both as the business receiving the cash and the
Yeah.
person paying, you're both in more control.
Absolutely.
Like a lot more.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, the weird thing is a lot of people's insurance cover massage, but what they will cover is not something that they'd actually want.
Yeah.
So they pay for insurance on the side anyways.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit weird to me that that's not way more common on the PT side. And actually, it's like, we've talked about this a bunch before, but the more similar model that I think would help for a lot of the health services is the way most dentist offices kind of operate, where like they have different cost options to give you right now.
Yeah.
They have plans to extend what you need to do over time in the future, but they're super centered on what I think a lot of medicine has gotten, just the practice of it has gotten away, is especially dentists, they're usually individual dentists running their own business, super centered on the needs and the cost to their client while making a healthy profit. Mm-hmm. And that the biggest contrast to me is, going into any of the big hospital chains or whatever for, let's not say an emergency service, but there's something you need prompt service on. Yeah. And you feel like you're part of this giant machine.
That's right.
That has all these moving parts, because you are. Mm-hmm. And it's not personal, even if the people right there in front of you are doing their best job.
Yeah. Well, I think, just even like trying to follow up with your medical doctor might be, more difficult than it needs to be in our modern age. Mm-hmm. Because they're, I think, separated from the process. Mm-hmm. And they're so overwhelmed as well. I mean, I think just having a lot of empathy for the people being stuck in the system, that some of that is because of all the high-tech aspects to certain specialties, that there's a lot of overhead, but also, there always is some sort of human component to helping decide if a treatment is right and having good follow-up.
Yeah.
And understanding, is this treatment working for this person? And I think that communication breaks down when you have layers. Like if you have like an 800 number, or you have like a big phone tree in order to reach your doctor, versus just being able to call them directly.
I was applying to medical school a while ago, and I shadowed doctors and stuff, and like the most, this is an emergency medicine thing, but like the most amazingly frustrating thing from the outside that I saw was like somebody comes in the hospital, life flighted in, got hit by an irrigation pipe or something. I could actually see his brain on the outside. It's not good. And the emergency physician is gathering gathering information, decide what he has to deal with first. And when something like that happens to you, many of your body systems are failing at the same time, right? It's like, you're having brain problems, you're having vascular problems, you're having breathing problems all at the same time, right? Wow. And there's sort of a priority list of what you die from first and what's important to maintain or whatever. But what was crazy to me is, hospitals have all these departments, and, so he sends an email with some information to the ENT and the neurology department, and then he looked over at me and he's like, so what's going to happen now is the most junior person in the entire department is going to show up and take a look before we get a senior person to come in, and then they will think about it, and then they will order the operating room. And that is exactly what happened, by the way. Like, what was crazy to me is that the ER doc didn't have the immediate privilege of scheduling the OR like right now, and just paging this type of surgeon he knew need to show up to just, you were going to be there. They like ask permission, and I'm not saying like he should order him and be a dictator or whatever, but it's like there was a multi-person consideration in the neurology department of whether or not we should help this guy who has his brain displaced.
Wow.
And, you know, I don't know anywhere near as much as those people about, you know, how or what should do it, but it's like, yeah, I think the guy has brain problems.
Well, like that ER, the attending physician of the ER was disempowered to have direct communication with his colleagues.
Yeah, by the system.
By the system. And it's like, I feel like there's empathy for those people who are, I mean, they're some of our most, you know, highly skilled, intelligent people in society. Mm-hmm. And even they are stuck in something that is not optimal.
Well, and I think we talk about business and stuff. I think the biggest part of it is highly educated, many, not all, highly educated people feel like somehow that business and dollars and cents is below them. Or it's not their problem.
I would not say that, but
that's controlling them.
Yeah.
Well, no, like you ask a doctor what something's cost, and they have no friggin' idea. Yeah. And their ignorance and they're not willing to take control of their business is why they feel control.
I guess I would say it slightly differently. Where
sure, because you're nicer than me.
Well, I don't think it's a willful want to be ignorant. I feel like it is a. I feel like, okay, if I had spent, 7 to 10 years becoming educated in finance, in tandem with the growth of my technical skills as a clinician, then I would feel like my financial and business acumen would be in step with my
And to be clear,
confidence.
You mean like a credit hour a week of personal / business finance.
Yeah. So now I'm basically a, let's say, experienced clinician, but I am I'm back at 18, 19 years old in some respects in my understanding of what it would
of the personal business finance.
Personal business finance.
Yeah, like how do you even do this stuff? Like I don't know. I'm learning new stuff.
And so there is when I'm in the room negotiating, let's say I am, struck by the mismatch in my technical ability to the finance acumen, and I think there's a unfortunate pressure not to look dumb. And so then it's a lot easier to be agreeable.
When people don't want to look dumb,
right,
they start going like this. And sometimes they get, not that someone's trying to be taking advantage of you, but like they just get buffaloed because they're being agreeable.
Right. And so, and there's a lot of other, I think, interpersonal strategies that could work, but if you're in the room with someone who's more experienced and they're leading the way on a certain realm, what standing do you have to be disagreeable if you don't understand the landscape?
And one of the things he's talking about is, he is an expert moving his field forward. He's probably going to be holding seminars that other clinicians fly around the world to learn how he does what he does. And as a side note, there's that medical device tool which seems useful to that practice, which costs a bunch of money and people are paid commissions to sell. And I was like, so if you're going to do that and you're going to explain how you use this tool in your practice, what percentage of a cut of that business somehow are you going to get for helping them sell it? And he was like, I have no idea even what to ask for. And I'm like, I don't either. You should probably talk to some medical device salesmen and ask what you should be, different medical device salesmen, and ask what you should be asking for as a cut. Because there probably should be some. Because you're part of the sales environment.
Well, it's all about, real information about...
Yeah, and you're selling something that's helping people, like...
Yeah, well, just to be clear, though, it's like, if you are a technically skilled person and you're helping people, you have this wealth of like personal, really highly personal information that you see what works and what doesn't. And let's say the sales side of let's say medical devices,
mm-hmm.
I mean, that's gold. Or, you know, if you're speaking directly to a person's problem, let's say as a physical therapist,
mm-hmm.
and you know this type of person, this type of dysfunction, I can help this for this reason, that's gold. And I think it's also just as worthy, like what you know does not work. And so, you know, it's just like, I guess, like understanding where that fits in the landscape of, you know, being compensated for helping clients or helping, you know, related businesses. You know, you need to be like compensated for what you do, so that you know that work, that worthy work can continue.
Yeah, well, I mean, if, you know, and I don't think this is unrealistic, if you're growing a practice that requires an expensive medical device that is going to grow that business substantially as you treat hundreds of thousands of more patients, you know, around the world or whatnot, a month growing over a year or whatever, there's no reason you shouldn't prosper along with the health increasing of other people and with the company who builds the device.
Yeah.
But you do need to ask for it, be intentional, and negotiate it.
Right.
Otherwise, you could literally pursue your dreams and individual career ambition of your own practice while giving someone else what amounts to millions of dollars in free advertising over time.
Right.
And if they're doing the right thing, there's no reason you shouldn't promote them.
Mm-hmm.
But you should get a piece of that.
Yeah. I think that's right, because, you know, we want to incentivize good stuff and get away from things that don't work.
Sorry, I just have this terrifying fear that it'll stop recording, like it stopped recording like half an hour ago or something.
No problem. Well, I think we should go outside and enjoy this day.
I do too. So talk about functional health. You should at least walk around every day.
Yeah. Water, walking, yoga, and mindfulness practice.
The doctor. All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.